Well, it's our last day of Focus Week, and I hope you've enjoyed all of the interviews, insights, and activities that we shared over the course of the week. We will have all of those recordings available on demand, should you want to catch up on anything that you might have missed over the week. But I hope you've really enjoyed it and got some really good and key insights to take away with you to your own organisations. But it's not over yet. Next up, we have our closing keynote, Can You Hear My Voice? And I'm delighted to welcome Savita Mace, who some of you may know as a CPO in the NHS from some of our previous interviews that we have shared with her. You might not know about Savita is that she's very keen on singing, and that is something that led her to connect with Dr. Thomas Moores in his work with the charity Shout at Cancer. And between them, they've been working on this choir project, which is absolutely inspirational with people who have literally lost their voice. This is their story.
Thank you, Ellen, for that wonderful introduction. And Ellen, congratulations on the awards that you won recently. Well done to Purchase to Pay. Thank you for inviting Dr. Thomas Moores and I to this end of your week-long and education session. So I understand that you've had many sessions this week uplifting and sort of upskilling finance and also procurement professionals. So I will introduce myself quickly and we will move on to what we are calling the voice influence. In today's session, we're going to cover techniques for you as finance and procurement professionals about influence, communication, and how to show up authentically. So I am Savita Mace. I'm the Chief Procurement Officer at the University Hospitals in Sussex, and I am a trustee at Shout at Cancer. So we will introduce Dr. Thomas Moores. Thomas, do you want to introduce yourself and the charity work that you're doing?
Yes, hi everyone. I'm Dr. Thomas Moores. I'm the founding director of Shout at Cancer. It's the only charity in the world that uses singing, acting, and beatboxing techniques to help people recover their speech and their confidence after losing their voice box after the operation called a laryngectomy. I'm a medical doctor in ear, nose, and throat, and I work at the moment in the Lancashire teaching hospitals. And over to you, Savita. I'm looking forward to this very interesting talk.
Thank you. Ellen briefed us about the sessions that we've seen over the week regarding very, very technical and finance related podcasts, and we thought we would finish the week by talking about how do we as stakeholders, as people who are making deals, negotiating, how do we effectively communicate using not just our voice, but our body language, emotions, etc. So I want to start with the basics, Thomas. I think there's a lot of synergies between what we do in the business world and what you're doing in the charity and as a doctor, especially with voice, rehabilitation, etc. What's your take on my synergies?
On your synergies, there must be quite a few. Just a basic one is that we all are dependent on our voice. And from a reflection from people who've lost their voice, if you're struggling to use your voice, then there's quite a few questions and difficulties that you have to overcome. And sometimes we all feel like we have to overcome those difficulties when we are dealing with a challenging conversation or when we are having to come across with a point or trying to convince someone. And it's all about finding that confidence and trying to get your message across. And speaking about the laryngectomy community, people who've lost their voice box, confidence rebuild is quite important in how we approach them. And we do that with exercises, with learning how to understand how the voice works to start with, and with warm-ups and exercises, funny exercises, playful exercises that we can introduce in basic techniques that we apply in our daily conversations.
Do you want to show us one of your funny exercises, Thomas? Do you care to show us one of the funny exercises?
Yeah, well, funny exercises. It can start in the morning when you wake up, and when you're in the mirror brushing your teeth. You can exaggerate brushing your teeth. You can warm up your tongue in front of the mirror, trying to imitate that the tongue is your toothbrush, for example. Throwing some kisses at yourself like that. Big smile is a good warm up in the morning. But we're using our voice, and we take our voice for granted. And to understand how our voice works, we will also work on breathing techniques, which is very good in the morning when you wake up. It calms you down. It's a bit of a meditation session if you want, but being aware of that diaphragm and those basic breathing techniques. If you start with it in the morning, you will apply those techniques during the day as well. A warm-up humming a siren is quite fun as well. Your neighbors might not appreciate it, or your partner lying next to you. But I do advise people to warm up the voice before they start their daily activities.
No, thank you. Yeah, humming a siren is not one I've tried. As you know, we are both singers, and I have done lots of warming up, but not the siren. And I suppose one of the things I want to ask you about is in the business world, especially as a woman, I have been told for most of my career that I need to get my voice heard. I need to find a seat at a table. I need people to listen. And working with you in the charity, I see the members and the patients sing. I hear them sing. I see them recite poems, and they have no voice box. The incredible strength, courage, and focus it takes for them to talk and speak. And some of us, obviously, we take for granted that we can just speak. And I want to ask you, Thomas, about getting your voice heard. So in the business world, I have to influence. So as a chief procurement officer, I have to sometimes negotiate. I have to influence people internally, and I have to make sure that what I'm saying is congruent to the message and it resonates with my audience. Is that similar to your world as a doctor and working with the patients with no voice?
Yeah, that is quite a layered question, isn't it? So I'll just act confident and pretend that I know the answer. But in regards to voice and the power of voice, it's about linking the breathing techniques to the support techniques to give that extra support in how your voice is carried. You breathe in and you breathe out, and then when you breathe out, you make the voice vibrate. In the case of the laryngectomy patients, they are vibrating the esophagus, the gullet, via a small tube that connects the back of the windpipe to the gullet. The air escapes, and then it vibrates the esophagus. So for both groups here, for you or our patient group, the lungs are the basic of the speech, the breathing, and then you need to give that extra support that you can give with diaphragm support, and also the support muscles that you use. You can do separate exercises for that. Trying to project, a good exercise in that is trying to speak as if you're speaking over someone. You project the trajectory of the words that you then form out of your mouth. You try to spit them over people, so you automatically will give extra support to when you are speaking. That's a good trick that I advise to people. Another one is that you'd be surprised how different your support comes with the tension in your body. And the playful exercises that we use there are acting techniques, basic acting techniques, basic emotions. You'll feel that the body support changes when you're happy, when you're sad, when you're angry. And doing basic exercises of acting techniques in front of a mirror or just by yourself, trying to read out a certain sentence in an angry way, in a happy way, in a sad way. It helps to find that how is my body changing whilst I'm giving support to my voice. And that will give you, allow you to bring much more intonation and expression in what you're trying to come across to whomever is listening. It's also much nicer for someone listening to you as well. And those things help in speech control.
Speech control. And I suppose, you know, so those are the kind of techniques I can use before I go to work, before I go to a conference, before I present, before we as procurement business partners, etc., before we sort of talk to our audience. What about when I said to you earlier about speaking with clarity, conviction, etc.? You've just told me about how the audience should acknowledge what I'm saying. So something about how I tell that story. So is this also about storytelling? My whole communication style.
It's absolutely storytelling. We have to remember that life's the theater, life's the stage, and we're all performing on it in different settings and different stories. And preparation is key. Any actor that goes on stage needs to be prepared. You can prepare going on stage with quick breathing exercises that will calm you down as well. Bit of an internal pep up talk as well. But you need to be prepared. And that's something what I work on actually in preparing people in getting a nicer language is we write poetry together. It's about storytelling and to find metaphors, to find a different way of explaining things. It helps to put words on paper and try to do that in a poetic way. In regards to testimonials of the patients, it's incredible how they come up with new ways of explaining things. It makes it easier to understand. It makes it easier for your audience to have an empathy towards you as well, to feel engaged. It is easier for you to have your message come across in a well, not always fun way, but definitely in a poignant way.
I couldn't agree with you more in terms of preparation. And we have to do a lot of preparation. We have to know our facts. We have to understand the business context, understand market insights, etc. And so I think for us, we have to really listen and understand our target audience. Similarly, in your world, in terms of listening for your patients and for the members of the charity, they've lost their voice. So I suppose is listening heightened, and can we hone in into some of those listening skills?
Yeah, well, a big part of in a conversation is the listening skills, active listening skills. How do you engage with someone you're listening to with your body language, leaning forward? Yes, that was a good example. So leaning forward, summarizing as well, summarizing the key factors, testing if you understood it correctly as well, and allowing someone else to speak. But at the same time, you obviously want to control the conversation as well. And so you need to be prepared to take over the conversation and then give the ball back to whom you're listening to or in conversation with. And a new series of workshops that we've been working on as we speak is how to conduct a conversation, where we use basic conducting skills in the conversation, where you like you're the conductor of the conversation. You use your hands to point. Okay, because sometimes there's more than one person in a conversation. You lead the other one in. You give a gesture like, oh yeah, interesting, keep on going, or you stop a conversation, and that helps to make a conversation engaging as well.
Really interesting, Thomas, that body language. It's interesting because sometimes we're in meetings and we sit back and we just verbalize what we want to convey. But I like that conducting skill. So you could actually get the audience to kind of move with you and the flow. Is that what you're saying about body language?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you're taking control of the conversation. Now, you have to bear in mind that I'm doing these exercises with people who struggle to being heard, who struggle with being overheard in the background noise, because their noise level, the sound they produce is exactly the same level with background noise. So they really struggle in bigger communities, in bigger groups to be heard. So there, those skills come really into practice. But if you're leading a business meeting, there is certain techniques, basic conducting skills that you can use to lead the conversation and pass on the talking time basically to each other to highlight, oh yeah, this is interesting, keep it going, or let's move on to the next page basically, and let's round up. Yeah.
That's right. I'm going to try to use these skills as we do this interview live. So, Thomas, we're talking
Yeah,
about
you did it very naturally there.
we're talking about body language. I understand
Yeah.
for me. You told me that 86% of our presentation is our body language. And we talked about previously that our body language can really undermine what we're trying to convey to our audience, be it in a meeting, a presentation, a conference. Can we talk? Can you help me understand a little bit more about that undermining the content?
Yeah, absolutely. Body language can reinforce or undermine what we're trying to say. You need to be aware of what your body is saying, because you might have prepared a perfect pitch, perfect talk. If you look like you're watching football or trying to think about something else, your message won't come across. If there's no interest from your body language, you won't engage with your audience. Even if you're reciting Shakespeare in the correct way, it won't come across. And we need to be aware of that. So basic language, basic body language techniques definitely will help in your techniques you use in your conversation.
So we've covered voice, listening,
Mm-hmm.
conducting, body language. Let's talk about emotions. And I have a little story for you. When I was very young, I used to be a wedding singer to earn extra money in university. And the mother of the bride paid me. She would tell me what emotion she
Yeah.
wanted to evoke, either when they're cutting the cake or putting on the rings. And she would say, I want you to make the audience cry, or I want you to make them happy. So in my singing world, I can evoke emotions. But I struggle in my professional world to evoke the right emotion in the right meeting at the right time. Could you talk us through a bit of that?
Gosh, yes, that is not an easy question, but I think, yeah, emotions, it starts with empathy, isn't it? You want to evoke empathy with the person who is listening to you. Again, you can use positive storytelling there as well, but you need to be active listening in a different way. You need to be feeling what the other person is going through and trying to pitch it in the right way. What are the emotions they are interested in? Impactful stories, personal stories help as well. Yeah, someone will relate to it. Those things definitely help. And in regards to the finance and the decision making, I think it's good to know what the interests are of the person engaged in the talk. What are the long-term goals? But using your expression, vivid language, like I said, I'm going back to the poetry writing, and try to come up with different synonyms, try to make it interesting, targeted to whom you're talking to, doing a bit of background research of what their interests are, and sometimes, sometimes silence really works to keep people engaged, but you have to play it on the right moment. So.
Right. I'm just mimicking silence. So, Thomas, we're almost out of time. I suppose to summarize for me, all of what you talked about, the body language, the conducting, the communicating effectively, it's about creating the right connection. And I wanted you to talk us through, because in the business world, when we meet, when some of us have met the patients and the singers in the charity, etc., we kind of underestimate what they have to go through. So I sort of wanted you to talk us through some of the limitations after a laryngectomy surgery. What are some of the things they can never do again?
Oh, well, there's quite a few, sadly. One of the things is they can't swim anymore. They can't swim safely anymore. Even taking a shower is compromised. Daily activities that, I mean, we don't really want to talk about, but we all go to the toilet, don't we? And going for a number two for them is hard because they can't build up the intra-abdominal pressure. So it's harder for them to have a number two, like basic things, but like the impact is quite significant. Another thing is smell, for example. They don't breathe in through their nose anymore, so they don't trigger the smell receptors, and then that affects the taste as well. So how they enjoy food is affected as well. The swallow itself is affected as well because the whole swallow mechanism is changed because of the anatomical changes in view of the operation they underwent. So swallow is difficult as well. The voice is the most obvious one for everyone. The pitch range, the length of phrases, the volume of it, the intonation, the emotional expression, it's all changed after this operation.
Wow. I mean, day to day and things that we take for granted, as you say, simple things like swimming, going to the toilet, pitch, range, intonation. These are things that in our daily lives, as business people, we take for granted. And it's amazing to see these patients sing on stage, recite poems, connect with people that like they've connected at the Women's Network. And it's really a testament to some of the brands. For example, Thomas, you talked recently about the chocolate brand that showed up inclusive. So some brands say that they're inclusive and some brands actually show up to be inclusive. And this chocolate company made something to do with the chocolate and saliva. Can you explain a bit more what they did?
Yeah, so I mean, you might have picked it up. I've got a Dutch accent here, a Flemish accent. So I'm originally from Belgium, and yeah, we're quite proud of our chocolates, aren't we? So I approached one of the top chocolatiers in Belgium, and I said, these people after radiotherapy and after this type of surgery, they don't produce as much saliva. Their taste has changed as well. They don't appreciate chocolates as much anymore. It tastes like cardboard. It's hard to swallow. So I approached him and I said, let's make a difference for them. Let's make them enjoy chocolates again. And he replied, you can count me in. So let's make this world taste like a better place. And we developed chocolates. We found the right base that's fermented with yeast. And it's a softer chocolate taste as the base. It's also a bit more acid, so it will produce more saliva. And then we added artificial saliva in the chocolate bonbon. So it's when you chew on it, it mixes itself in the chocolate. It allows the taste to work better because we need saliva in order to make our taste buds work better. And also it helps with the swallow.
Wow. Fascinating. That is really, truly fascinating. And it's amazing what the work the charity is doing. So you and I, so I'm a trustee of this charity. You founded it, and we have other ENT consultants like Dr. Rajiv Advani, who's supporting us with some of the advice for patients, etc. And I think Shout at Cancer is a charity dedicated for throat cancer and other throat-related issues. But I think the work that you've started with workshops for not only the patients, but for business people to understand how to use our emotions, how to use our voice, how to use what we have in our toolbox to effectively communicate, to connect with people, but but to also sort of give back and to form communities. It's really fascinating, Thomas. I really want to thank you for coming on to this podcast today. Ellen is going to wrap up for us, but are there any final words from you, Thomas?
Well, I think you mentioned earlier on that we take the intonation, the pitch, etc., for granted. But I want to take it a step further, and I would give you the task to try to write down in a few words. Try to describe your own voice, and you'll see that it's very difficult. And what that shows is that we don't really appreciate our voice. We take our voice in general for granted, because if you would be able to describe your voice pretty well. And like on the last note, the choir of people with no voice box, the laryngectomy choir, what they truly show is the resilience that we all as human beings, when we adversity, that we can overcome those things. We need the support, we need people around us, but we can rely on ourselves and be confident in ourselves that we can find the energy and the power and the hope to get through this.
Absolutely. And Thomas, perhaps let's end where we show a video of the resilience of the choir. So we're going to move to a video now, but really thank you again for coming on the podcast and joining the Purchase to Pay Network long week of webinars. Ellen, we're going to play a video and then it's back to you. So thank you very much. One piece of homework for the audience is describe your voice. That's it. Bye. Take care.
Okay.
Bye.
I see trees of green. I see them bloom. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. I see skies of blue and clouds of white. The bright blessed day, the sacred night. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. The colors of the rainbow, so pretty in the sky, are also on the faces of people going by. I see friends shaking hands, saying, how do you do? But one of them is saying, I love you. I hear babies cry. I know I watch them grow. They learn much more than I'll ever know. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. What a wonderful world. What a wonderful world. Oh yeah.
Wow. What a fantastic and inspirational story. Thanks so much to Savita and Dr. Thomas as well for sharing that with us and everybody at the PPN Network for our Focus Week. A fantastic story, and thanks to everybody from the choir at Shout at Cancer as well. And I'm sure there are some points there that we can all take back with us to our own organisations, and actually to our own personal lives as well. So thanks very much to both of you and to the choir for sharing that with us today. So that's it at the end of our focus week. I hope you've really enjoyed everything that that you've shared with, that you've interacted with, and that you've watched and taken part in over the course of the whole of this week. As I mentioned at the beginning of before the keynote session this morning, we will be sharing all of these interviews on demand, so you can catch up with anything that you might have missed. But from us now, thanks very much for joining us and being part of our 5th annual Focus Week, and thank you to Pagero for headlining. Thanks very much.